Welcome everyone to the next episode of the Catributors podcast. Today it's just Jedi and myself, but I guess we have plenty to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's patch week, and we have this is like one semi-substantial news thing, and then lots of other little news things. So yeah, we've got a decent number of things to talk about today, I think.
Yeah, starting with the patch, in the second stage of the Pan-Asian Cruiser things, which is basically just delaying the launch more to make you spend money on an early access that you really shouldn't.
As is well established at this point.
Yeah.
The way they've structured it is somewhat interesting, though. I think you can, with all the challenges they did for the first lot, you could get up to the tier 7 with the free grind, and anything after that, anything after the Chumphon, you basically needed to spend credits. And I can't remember specifically what the last one was like. That feels a little bit less generous than previously. I don't know.
The Germans also had the tier 7.
Yeah.
What they did differently this time, there was like a mission for the tier 7, right? And with the tokens, you got up to like the tier 6, and I think the camo for the tier 7. And then you had to complete the mission for the...
So you could get one of the camos for free, and then anything beyond that, you had to start putting in doubloons, basically. So, yeah, it's nothing terribly new there now. Well, I mean, there's starting to be more of a common. I've even seen some of the tier 10s around, like people that clearly decided they were going to whale their way up to the tech tree tier 10, and what is it, like 20,000 doubloons for that final one?
Yeah, but you first need to whale yourself some tokens to get
you have
so
to buy
far.
all the tokens first. 1,000 doubloons a pop, like 800 tokens for 1,000 doubloons. I can't remember if there was a package that gives you. Yeah, there's one that gave you a chance of 12,000 tokens in one go, and that's for all 800 tokens. So, yeah. So is there anything special for the part 2, or I don't, or is it now actually in live with the tech tree? I can't actually remember.
No, the tech tree, like they usually schedule the early access these days, right? There's the first part, the first month where you can earn free tokens, and then there's another month where you can't actually progress, but it's still a month where you can spend money on. So they're like,
yes, I'm just looking in the armory now. Yeah, that's all still there. You can still go and spend your doubloons. Don't worry, don't panic, children.
You can't earn any free progress more, and then in a month they will be fully released.
I mean, the missions were not too bad, to be honest. I think I fairly easily managed to get all of the grindable tokens. I got the Chumphon, and of the 3 of them, I have gotten without really spending anything. I've not played the Chungking much, but the Ramat actually has been kind of fun. And then I've played a couple of games in the Chumphon and have not been that impressed.
The tier 7? It's a ship where you need to land torps, I think, to make it worth it. Because otherwise, you might just play something else. I mean, you have smoke and like you're sort of a flint.
Yeah, it's less the flint's firepower. You don't have the wing turrets that the Atlanta has, and you've also got
that was reload, I think.
Second reload, so yeah, it's not a fast reload, especially. Flint is 5.1, Atlanta is 4.8, so it's the slowest of them by a margin. Which, I mean, you get smoke, so that's fair in a way. So does
the Flint, and the Flint gets better smokes. But you have more range.
You do. Not by much.
Actually, like the Flint has like 12.4, I think. So it's
Flint's 12.4. What's Atlanta?
13.3. You have 100 less than Atlanta. I've found that the tier 7 is interesting, partially if you division it, because you don't have Hydro, which is a shame, right? And you don't have any other useful consumable. You basically have your smoke that you can provide for another thing. So if you division it up with like in Atlanta, you can both be there. You have about similar range. You provide the smoke, and the torpedoes can be nice, but it feels like they have balanced it too much around the torps. And your top reload booster is also questionable.
The range is good, and you could, with even without concealment expert, because I've only got the 6-point captain they gave me with, it's still 10.3 concealment versus 10.5 of the torpedo range. So you sort of hypothetically do a drop, but yeah, with concealment you can get down to 9.3. So I think it's going to be a bit of a better experience with concealment expert, but it's going to be a little while before I get that, because I keep spending all my my free Captain XP on Captain retrainings.
Yeah, but they don't you have like an experienced captain for the nations? Because they still count as premiums. You don't need a dedicated one right now.
What is my best Pan-Asian captain? Probably, I probably do have a better one that I could have put in there, but I haven't played my Pan-Asian ships that much. I think my best one might literally be like a 15-point captain.
I mean, if those ships are gonna be fun, I'll probably put an orc on one of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. Right, it's still a month until we can see the higher tiers.
But yeah, of the ones we have so far, I think Ramat I might actually play for fun, and it makes me hopeful for Dido. But we'll see how Dido compares to Ramat, how similar they are. Because at the moment, I don't know if you can, like, even with the tech tree mod, can actually one see the. I'm going to check that just now. Sometimes they hide the stats.
You want to see Dido's stats?
It's actually. I know. I'm aware it's probably in like a post as well, but I'm just looking on the actual client now.
I mean, it's sort of released already, right? If you whale your tokens, you could have it right now.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, we've had the patch, haven't we? That has occurred. Yes.
Yes.
It feels really soon to since the last one, but then we had a longer than normal stretch over Christmas because
it
was Christmas New Year. So,
well, speaking of the patch, we also have the Dirigible Derby game mode now, which is
yes.
I don't know. I feel like it's not ideal. It can be some quick fun. It's have you played it yet?
I've done, I think, 3 rounds. One I got blatted super early because I was in a cruiser, nobody else wanted to stay in the, like, none of our destroyers were like, oh, we'll stay in the circle and make the thing go. So I was, I think, in the Worcester and had to go at it and got spotted and then basically blatted by enemy ships that were just kind of charging at us. So I think we still ended up winning that one somehow. I don't know. I went away and played another one in the Harugamo where we did manage to. I think we won by getting all the enemy ships because they just spread themselves out everywhere. Yeah, it's interesting. I think it kind of maybe depends on the map and the path. I suspect some maps are going to be more fun than others. I need to play it some more before I can really give a truly informed opinion, but just the fact that it's still 12 versus 12, it's basically a normal random match, but with a different objective, essentially.
Yeah, I'm not sure yet if they should have reduced the players. What feels weird to me is that, like, early on, you can't really do much to contest the airship, right? It's like early on, both teams basically they have at least one sitting in their ring and then they move. And then in the end, it comes down to like a massive brawl, which I don't necessarily object to because I like brawls. But it's a bit weird that I feel like early on, you can't really harass them. You can't really slow down the progress unless the enemy team is incompetent and has no ship inside their circle. There's usually enough of a distance that you can easily push it. And then in the end, it comes to like a certain choke point or something where the teams get really close together. And then it's like an all-out brawl.
Yeah. I mean, obviously that's how they've designed it, that it becomes more kind of frenetic the closer you get to the center, which is, in theory that's a good game design. But there is that interesting thing, and because it's essentially random games, there's not really that much coordination with teams. As how many people are going to stick around to try and defend versus how many people are going to try and disrupt the enemy one, and it's a bit of a free-for-all in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I like that they force like a close engagement in the end, but what I dislike is that for the first part, there isn't really much you can do to hinder the progress, so you just have some ships that are stuck inside the circle. And because it's not a coordinated team that you're on, right? Whoever is like spawning there has to just sit in there, whether if the ship's suited for it or not. And they are stuck with like the path, while there is a little bit harassment or whatever going on there, and then I feel like there should be something you could do before, like the end brawl, because it feels like, or I haven't played that many matches, but so far it feels like whoever has more ships remaining for that massive brawl in the end and is positioned around the choke point does better or does win. And early on, it's just waiting for that to happen and somebody who has to sit inside the circle. And you can't really interrupt them because you'd have to get way too close and die.
Yeah, the only real... if you took a very stealthy destroyer that was fast, which is like there's not that many options for that at tier 10. There's Shima and I don't even know what else.
But the circle's too small, right? If you are in that circle and they push it, they're gonna see you.
Well, I mean, in terms of just trying to spot rather than actually getting in and disrupting.
Oh, yeah. Okay, you could try to snipe whatever ships.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do so also with long-range torpedoes. You can try to force them out. Summons would have like long-range enough torpedoes that you could just spam basically like the path of the circle and hope that in order to touch the torps, they need to go out, and so you delay them a little bit. So you could harass slightly like that, but it's still not going to be enough to like overcome the end brawl, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, if this... I still need to play it more, as I said, but if this was in... even if it was just like tier 10 games, as like if a war game said, we're going to take out Epicenter and then we're going to have this dirigible mode instead that pops up occasionally when you're in the random queue instead of Epicenter games, I'd be all right with that.
Yeah, maybe. It's better than Convoy because it's obviously balanced between the teams.
Yeah, I think that's you're not trying to do some kind of asymmetric battle mode. It's the opposite. It's a symmetrical battle mode. And it's interesting that it comes down to fighting over a moving objective rather than the static ones of the cap circles. But it's really not that different in conception otherwise. It is literally just that your cap circle, as it were, is moving as opposed to...
I mean, it's different in the sense that each has their own cap circle and you can't really take the other one. And you spawn in them. So it would be interesting if you'd had like moving objectives on the map that you could capture in a sense, right? A bit more.
The one thought I've had that would be interesting is if you took the power-ups or whatever you want to call it from Arms Race, if you had something like that they would randomly, or not randomly, but appear in certain spots, and you could use those to enhance your own progress or disrupt the enemy's dirigible, to make it go at half speed or something like that, so that there's more stuff going on the map. And,
honestly, I also wouldn't mind if you don't need a ship inside the circle. Like, you can disrupt the enemy progress if you're inside their circle, but your ship just moves at a constant speed no matter what you do. And then you'd have objectives, as you mentioned, to speed up the progress. Because it would free up ships to do other things, right? They don't need to sit in the circle, they only need to sort of defend it. And you can get the ships a bit apart. The problem is if you have like a massive brawl with like brawls with like 5 ships or so, or 7 ships, they tend to be more fun because you get blapped too easily if you have like 12 versus 12 in a very short area, I feel like. So if a lot of ships are still alive, it's a giant clusterfuck in the end.
It's definitely, I think, it's definitely going to come down to trying to knock off as many ships as you can before you get to that point. I mean, the Harugama game where we did win, I think I think somebody did actually get in and was able to disrupt the enemy dirigible, but we just killed so many enemy ships by that point that they couldn't fight back effectively because they'd scattered themselves too widely. Like it's going to be. I think it's going to have all of the randomness of normal random games. To be honest, I'll definitely have to play some more, but I can't see people magically being more coordinated about it.
No, you have people that are on the opposite side of the objective on the one line or something like that, and sniping away and so on. So it's the player base has not gotten better. This mode.
Magically, no, sadly. Tom McKeever, they do have a new Falkland Islands themed map. I don't know if we have any actual pictures of the top-down mini-map style thing to know what the layout's going to be. We just know what the aesthetic is going to be from the screenshots we've had so far. I'm
wondering that they have. When was the last time they have mentioned this map for it feels like a year now. They're like, oh, new map that's coming sometime. They are parading this out in front of them. Oh, look, this is going to be so cool. We actually do new maps, but I have actually no idea when it's coming. Was there a date in the roadmap? Don't think so.
I honestly can't remember. I'm pretty sure it was this year. I don't think we've got too much longer to wait.
Yeah, I'm sure. But I'm sure they'll still parade out at least 3 more times telling us that a new map's coming and how great it is. So, then in other news, we have super carriers now getting tested.
Yeah, those are in the latest bundle that you can buy with the tokens if you get enough of them. I think it's the United States. I have encountered the Hornet being tested as well, which also has I can't remember if they're jet planes or not, but it has the strike consumable. Or not consumable, but it has the strike alternative attack.
Yeah, I haven't run into that yet. I have run into super carriers, although not really too often. I'm afraid that there will be a lot this weekend because, well, one, it's weekend, people have time, and the other is you don't necessarily get the ships in the first bundle. But once they have been able to open 3 or so of them, there will be a lot more who have them unlocked. So it's just they get a lot of in my experience they get a lot of uptime of the jet planes, because while there are some cooldowns on them, they have 3 squadrons, right? So once they start with the jet planes, they're actually spending a lot of time with jet planes instead of the regular planes, which, as expected, makes sure that the regular planes, even if they throw them away, they don't really run out, it feels like. They're also not going to run out of jet planes because it's a consumable, and you are not going to shoot them down anyway. And they are so damn fast, it's usually it's already so fast, right? You get spotted by a carrier, you shoot down, the planes disappear, they drop. Maybe you shoot down 1 or 2, and it feels like almost instantly they are back. They are, because they have a bit of flight time, but now they are really almost instantly back. So you can't get out of that spotting.
Yeah, it's all the fun of Soviet carriers with, your AA, you might shoot down a plane or 2, it doesn't matter.
Oh, I guess you get a consolation experience.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still early. We will have to see where they go. I mean, I'm not sure if like the thing is the Soviet civis are so disgusting that they might even be stronger than the super carriers. I'll have to admit, right, from like a damage perspective, I think I might be more afraid of a Soviet carrier than a super carrier.
Nakhimov. I don't think there's many people who would. Well, I mean, there might be people that disagree, but they're probably the ones playing it. So, I don't know. I think even some of the people playing it would probably think it's fairly disgusting.
Possibly. Yeah, we'll see how they go with super carriers, but it feels like it's something that was definitely not needed.
Yeah.
If they only would do something about freaking carrier spotting.
It almost feels like submarines, where it's like, oh well, let's shoehorn in some extra content. More content. At least this time it's something that exists within the framework of the game already, and it's not trying to bash a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah, I suppose. Although you could argue that carriers don't quite... Well, I mean, the way they're designed, they don't quite fit into the game either.
Kind of.
It's just that we have been plagued with them for so long that it's,
Stockholm Syndrome or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, other than that, we have personal challenges, which is basically just how you get your Mediterranean tokens for the... That's a positive event, right? You can get either a free Dido or a free Canarias. Unfortunately, not both.
Yeah. It'd been interesting to know which... I haven't played either, so I'll be have to watching people on YouTube to see which one's more worth it. But I honestly
you're
don't know
gonna get Dido anyway.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Canaries looks kind of interesting though.
Yeah, but could your British heart take it not taking a Dido?
Maybe. I mean, I could just shell out and get both potentially.
True. There is the option. So the way the event works, right? You have 2 weeks, 2 times 2 weeks, sort of like one period is 2 weeks, and in one period you can get up to 50 points by completing personal challenges. So you need to complete 50 challenges though, right? Because you only get 1 token per challenge, but you have 2 weeks for that. And then in the next 2 weeks you can get another 50 tokens, so you get 100 total for free. And a ship costs 70. But then afterwards you can get a crate for like 30. So if you get the 100 free tokens, you can get 1 ship and a 10 ship crate.
Yeah. Which, if I'm really lucky, would give me a Forest Sherman, because that's the only thing I could get from it. But given that we now know the drop rates, I know exactly how unlikely that is. Could still happen, it's just probably not going to. Yeah. It's nice being able to look and see the exact drop rates. Like, that's just been such a good change.
True. Because now we know, I think you need about 19 of, like, if the Sherman is the only ship you're missing, I think on average you need 19 crates to. What's 1 crate? 2,500?
Yeah, it wouldn't like 19 times whatever that is. I can't maths. But yeah, that's still a lot of doubloons.
Yeah, that's like 47,500. Like 47,500 doubloons that you are paying for an average, right? On average, that there's no guarantee that you're gonna get it.
Curious now. I'm gonna look up in the shop exactly how much that would be for the average. What's 47,000? Where are we? Premium shop. Right, that would be well over £100. As one of the packages is 50,000 doubloons for £138. So, lots and many.
Well,
on average.
On average, could get worse.
Yeah.
Well, you can also pay some money for like tokens to get Didron Canaries. So if you want to spend money, Wargaming has you covered on so many levels.
Yes. It's always like not exactly one step forward, 2 steps back. It's more like 1 step forward, 2 steps sideways. It's like any sense.
And at least 1 step back.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we've already touched now on those crates. So there are currently tier 10 crates. And you can buy the armory that basically have a chance of a tier 10 ship. It contains, I think, mostly the coal ships or the 4th German, which is going to be a coal ship in the future. But right now it's only accessible through a loot box with a 5% chance drop rate, and 5% is any of the ships on the list. So you need to have all the ships have a 5% chance on the force.
It's a thing they've done before in different forms. It's a common tactic of free-to-play game companies. Even games where you play, some of the scummier companies out there are quite happy to, double dip and try and charge people multiple times over for games they've already paid for. But in this case, it's a chance to get coal ships, some of which I don't think are otherwise available. So yeah, I mean, more loot crates, yay. Probably the worst thing about this is the Forest Sherman and trying to play on that FOMO factor and hoping people will be impatient and just buy however many containers is needed to get themselves the Forest Sherman.
Yeah, have they said when it will be available for coal? They say it will be available in the armory in exchange for coal later. Yeah, later is a very loose term, isn't it?
It could be 3 months. It could be a year from now.
Could be 10 years. No. Didn't they say that ships like the Black would be available for coal, and then they never did it?
Maybe. I'm sure they probably have in the past said, oh yeah, this is going to be available for this later, and then it's just never happened. It probably has happened at least once or twice.
Well, in other news, I guess there's going to be a new clan battle season with no carriers. Yay! Yeah, not that I play clan battles, but it's making everyone who plays clan battles happy, I suppose.
It's going to be the Albatross clan season, which, if anybody knows their nautical poetry, is an interesting thing to. Yeah, definitely shades of Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner going on there, potentially. Probably some clever joke one could make in reference to that. Anyway,
okay, I'm not familiar with them.
I can't even remember who wrote it. Yeats or somebody. I don't know. It's a fairly famous poem, anyway. Oh, okay. Samuel Taylor Coleridge. There we go.
So, and there is also a new ranked battle season where. Interesting, Bronze League is 7v7, Silver League is 6v6, and Golden League is 5v5. And also the ship tier increases.
I don't think there's anything. Is there any new things in this season? I'm not seeing.
Yeah, I haven't actually played ranked in a long time, so probably not gonna start now.
The two battleships. Team cannot have 2 identical ships in its lineup. I don't know if that's a particularly new thing or not. But it does force some diversity, I suppose, and you're not just having
that's clan
all
battles,
of the usual suspects. Because I'm sure that's happened in previous ones where there's just been
for clan
certain of the same ship, and it just is everywhere because it's
you can't have 7 Petros.
Yeah. Unfortunately, for the super tryhards.
Otherwise, they'd have to balance ships, right, if they wouldn't have any limitations.
Oh, well, I'm sure the no carriers thing will make some people happy, at least.
Oh, definitely.
Sadly, you're going to have to wait to see super carriers in ranked games. I'm sure it'll happen. Not quite yet.
Awesome. Then we have changes to in-game economy. Like, the damage to aircraft is now what determines the experience you get and not the shot-down planes only. Which is probably a good change.
Yeah, there's plenty of I'm sure everyone's had this experience, plenty of games where you do, 10, 15,000 aircraft damage. You don't maybe even necessarily shoot down that many planes for that damage. So it's probably a fairer way of calculating it, because doing it by plane kills almost feels like a holdover from the old RTS system.
Possibly. Then there is some ammunition supply changes, which I don't know how this really affects carrier economy.
Sure, it'll all be very opaque.
Yeah, and then they rebalance carrier aircraft experience so that they probably get more experience. I mean, they say they will now earn more for sinking enemies and less for damaging them, so they really want to focus carriers on playing smart, which is never going to happen. But it's a nice try.
Yeah, it's. We'll see how that pans out in practice. It depends how big of a buff it is, because they have made these kind of changes in the past, which have actually then had an effect on player behavior. To be honest, from a gameplay point of view, getting complete kills is useful, but at the same time, if you're on the receiving end of the carrier that just keeps coming back at you over and over and over again, trying to kill you off, that's not that fun. So, yeah.
I mean, the thing is, the only thing that makes the game with carriers sort of playable is mostly that most carriers don't know how to play carriers. It's like, I've recently had a game again where I was down to 200 hit points in like my set 52, right? And it's like, in the end, the only reason I survived is because the carrier couldn't spare 2 seconds to keep me spotted. He detected me, accidentally flew over me, and I survived that spot with 200 hit points, because if he had stopped a second or turned around, I would have been dead, right? And he was annoying in the end, but once he had me down to 257 hit points, he never actually tried to find me again. And I could actually sink 2 more ships in this game. And the only thing that made that game playable for me was really that the carrier had no idea what he was doing.
Well, there's always that factor in meeting basically any enemy in World of Warships.
Yeah, true, but like the problem with the carrier is obviously that he's omnipresent on the battlefield and that there is no counter to it, right? Because to every other ship, there is something you could do against, while carriers, there is nothing you can do.
Yeah.
The best thing you can do is attrition him over time by shooting down his planes, and that's only if he is bad at plane management and goes into too heavy anti-air. But the only defense against the carrier you have is long-time attrition if the carrier is not very good.
We'll have to see how the spotting, that's something where the proposed spotting changes would have potentially made a difference.
Oh, definitely. Assuming that the area would have been small enough, but they haven't talked about this again. So I somehow doubt that we will ever see those spotting changes.
I mean, they got as far as acknowledging that there needs to be some kind of change to how things are done.
But they have acknowledged that 2 years ago already.
Yeah.
And I haven't done anything since.
Well, I don't know what wargaming's done to make you so cynical, Aetam. I mean, they always have the player's best interests at heart, right?
Definitely. Well, in other non-carrier related news, now the Khabarovsk and the Kurfürst have been replaced. And interesting, I've never really played the Khabarovsk, so I have no idea if I haven't played the replacement either, obviously.
I went and I free XP'd to the Khabarovsk and bought it, and then I haven't actually free XP'd and bought the Delny, so I have no idea how that compares. But I've only played the Khabarovsk a handful of times. I have played the Preußen, though, or Preußen, however one pronounces that.
Poison, yes.
Which is it's kind of it feels a bit weird in that it feels like not that many guns for like compared to the 12 guns you had, and then you're downgraded to these 8 guns, but they are bigger guns, and overall it still feels like a reasonably tanky, pushy tier 10 German battleship. So I don't know if its role has changed that substantially. It's just the firepower that has, and there's also been the knock-on effect, I think, particularly with the Preußen and the GK of people having spent free XP to unlock the GK, and now they've gotten it as because I think if you had it unlocked, but you didn't necessarily have to buy it to then get it post-match. So there's been lots and lots of GKs in the matchmaking over the last day or two.
Oh yeah. I mean, there might also have been people who've just gotten it for coal or something.
Yeah, so that's also true. Or they bought one of those
from a crate.
containers. Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, that might also be the case. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but interesting enough, I've heard is that the Khabarovsk replacement is worse than the Khabarovsk, and the Khabarovsk hasn't been like that great for a while. Yeah, which I can't confirm. I haven't played it.
It's a bit weird. It's kind of like it used to be the king of the open water gunboats, and then that's definitely not true anymore at all. And it's in this kind of position of just, I think, the rest of the game just kind of having passed it by to some extent, and that we can sort of look at the fact that rather than try and rebalance it further, they've just shoved it to one side and put in a new tech tree tier 10. But yeah, I think I might have to try the Delny and see how that compares. But I'm certainly not an expert on Soviet destroyers. It's one of the lines I've not really ever touched that much. But it's certainly, it's fast. It's I think effectively an upgraded Tashkent. But we'll see. I mean, probably the biggest notable change is it actually has usable torpedo range compared to the Khabarovsk.
Yeah, but I mean, it was never really about that.
No.
Will I read your comments, Sally? Which comment? So yeah, I've seen that we haven't talked about the crashes just yet. We'll probably come to that later.
Yeah, they've I've acknowledged that there's some issues. One thing they haven't mentioned is the the kind of weird visual flashy bugs and some of the other slight strangenesses that have been, I think, happening on the reworked maps. I don't know if it's just with the reworked waves. There's something that's causing some kind of weird visual flashes, but yeah, they don't seem to have mentioned that. But I guess that's a lower priority compared to, clients crashing.
Yeah. So there also there seems to be a client crashing and longer login times right now. It's obviously interesting that they have, I'm not sure how widespread the problem is, but it's interesting that they decided to install the patch despite them obviously figuring that out already when they patched other versions.
It's fine, we'll get round to it later, probably. It might be one of these things where it's happening to, in their view, sufficiently few people that they've decided just to push the patch out anyway, and then they'll do a hotfix.
I mean, they are not really a company that reacts to anything other than, the world ending, right? If they have it, or if they have a plan to do something, they're gonna do it. And unless the world really ends or somebody, threatens their life, they are not going to stop, probably.
Yeah, it's unusual to have...
It's like...
They're not the most responsive company, we'll put it that way.
There was this premium ship last year. I'm not sure which one it was. Was it the French one? where the camera was bugged, right? You had like, I think, wrong camera angles or so on.
Which one? Sorry, you cut out for a second there for me.
Yeah, my internet seems to be acting up slightly. I think it's good again. So I don't remember which ship it was, but there was a ship that had like a buggy camera. And I knew it had a buggy camera, right? That you had like the wrong camera angle and whatnot.
Yeah, that was one of the battleships, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they released it in a buggy state with the statement they're gonna fix it like in a month, and then gave some compensation to people who actually spend money on it. They knowingly sold a faulty product and told people, it's okay, we're going to fix it in a month, but here's like, I don't know if you paid this premium compensation.
Rather than actually, put out the non-buggy thing. So we're just like, it's fine, people will buy the buggy thing, we'll just fix it later.
And I mean, it's not even like delaying a full patch, it's delaying like just selling that one product. And they couldn't even be bothered to do that, to release it in. So that's what's shocking to me, because it seems so obvious if you have a buggy product to first fix it.
That has been their modus operandi, I think, for a while now. And some of that, I mean, there is one other news thing that I don't know if we want to get to that just now, but we can at least mention it, that the guy that's been in charge of all this stuff, Sub Octavian, he's been in charge for a long time, and a lot of the monetization policies of the game have, or if not all of them, have basically evolved under his watch. And it's kind of not surprising that they would have taken that approach, considering how things have evolved under his leadership. If that makes any sense.
I mean, I'm not sure. He was like the executive producer or developer or something like that. I'm not entirely sure what comes with the job description, but he was somewhere higher up and he was one of the decision makers. Obviously, there is like a whole team behind it. And now he is basically left to another wargaming project.
Yeah, we don't know what yet, and he's announced he's moving over in March, so it's not like he's quitting the company entirely or anything like that. But
no.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's been some, like, it's one of those things where we know he's stepping down, but we have no idea who might replace him or what it might mean for the game. So,
I mean, the thing is that it's highly unlikely that all of the bad design decisions are, like, I mean, they might have one person who okays them or who leads them, but he's going to have a team under him that's sort of
the kind of
his
structures in place. I fully expect them to go. And this might be the cynic in me, but I fully expect them to go, oh well, it's all been, this is how it is now. It's all been working well so far. So let's just continue.
Yeah, I don't expect any changes. I highly doubt they replace him with someone who has a completely different mindset. And I also would say that the people that are working on the game, they will just continue as is. So I haven't agreed with his philosophy for a long time, but I'm not sure if it's going to get better or not without Sub Octavian.
Yeah. I think I'm kind of inclined to agree with that. I mean, there certainly have been people within the organization, we know for sure, that have pushed for different directions, that have pushed for more player-friendly policies. But, those tend to be within the consumer-facing part of the team, the community-facing part of the team. Of course, they're not in charge at all. So.
And they don't seem to have a promising career at the company, or might even then switch.
There have been... I mean, I don't know how this compares to the context of these kind of companies generally, but it does feel like there's been a fair bit of turnover in terms of people that actually do care about the player experience, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, see, that's also my concern, right? My Sub Octavian might have been one of the people who pushed the current direction of the game, but him leaving isn't gonna change much, because everybody who didn't agree with that has probably already been pushed out. And that means, unless what they needed is somebody really at the top who wants to turn this around and replaces leadership with somebody who has highly new ideas. And I highly doubt that's what happened. So I believe it's just going to be more of the same thing with a different face.
I mean, worst case scenario. Well, actually, no. Worst case scenario would be everything goes.
It's worse.
Way worse. But yeah, I suppose that's the not quite worst case scenario, but still not great case scenario where nothing really gets better. We'll see. I mean,
We'll see.
We've had improvements in terms of communication from the company and things on that front, but we haven't necessarily had many improvements in terms of like monetization and all the rest of it. Like the one big step we've had has been the disclosure of
Yes.
loot box rates, and I'm sure there are other factors at play there other than just that was the consumer friendly move to make. I'm sure they were definitely at least thinking about European legislation and complying with laws in different, or potential laws in different countries. Now that more and more governments have been looking at that as an issue.
Yeah, it's a question if it was a step that they had always planned and just accelerated it, or if they really did this to just satisfy the community. And also keep in mind they had already displayed odds on like the console version and so on. So it's not like this is the first.
They were required to previously.
Yeah.
So this is it does feel like them trying to be ahead of the curve.
Yeah, or maybe they already had considerations for that anyway. They also had data probably how well it sells on other platforms with the odds displayed, and maybe they figured that it wouldn't be that problematic for them to change it. So we've read the Poison is a ship that I've actually played, and it feels relatively close to Kurfürst. You have faster firing guns that are obviously less of them and higher caliber, so you finally can screw over cruisers as much as every other battleship. It has, I think, slightly better angles, but overall, I haven't felt much difference to the Kurfürst. What I have felt is I felt a little bit more frustrated because you have bad dispersion as well. And with less shells, it just feels worse because you don't make up for it.
I mean, considering the caliber of the gun, you can at least get the reload down to like 21 seconds, something like that.
Yeah, and then lower with Adrenaline Rush.
Yeah, so you can be putting out the shells fairly often, but yeah, it does feel like you have to get a bit closer to actually make the guns effective. You can't just rely on the weight of the shells you're putting out, like the Montana, or the accuracy of the shells you're putting out, like the Yamato, especially legendary upgrade Yamato. I would still definitely take it, like easily. It feels like a ship that I will play, and I obviously still got the GK I can play now as well if I want to. It definitely feels like a more fun ship to play than, say, the Cristoforo Colombo.
Definitely.
Not a hard bar to beat, really, or the Vermont.
So Charlie, you think it feels more closer to the Friedrich? Well, I mean, it has the same amount of guns as the Friedrich, right? But like, it has basically the same hull as the Kurfürst, and it in many ways I feel like it's almost like playing a Kurfürst, right? Except for like the guns feel different. But as far as I play the ship, it's sort of the same.
Yeah, there might be some variations in the armor scheme, but it overall feels like that kind of.
I haven't actually looked at it exactly in port and compared them, but I felt basically the same.
Yeah, I don't think. I'm just actually checking that out. I don't honestly think there's that much difference between them armor-wise.
I think it's basically the same hull. They mostly just changed the turrets. And wasn't there like a slight anti-air change or something?
Possibly. I'm just checking that now. Yeah, I think it's got slightly better AA. Same bubble radius, but yeah, it has a few more. Is it the 55mm guns? Got the same number of dual-purpose 128s. It seems like it's got some more of the mid-caliber guns for a bit of extra DPS. In that regard, I'm guessing the outer DPS shell will probably be the same.
And since the damage per shell feels paltry for those, well, I don't know. Like, I've like what they've done is they've reduced the reload a bit, right? So you have less guns, but with better reload. So I presume they didn't need to push up the damage that much. I mostly wanted to give it a higher caliber, not for more alpha damage in a sense, I think, but to just screw over cruisers. Because, well, one thing that wargaming hates more than the player base is cruisers. Unless they're Russian.
To put it in context, it's the same number of guns and only very slightly worse reload than the Republic, but obviously it's a very different platform than the Republic, and it's actually bigger guns than the Republic.
And it probably doesn't have the like Republic has amazing high explosive.
True, yeah. I mean, you've got the extra pen with it being German high explosive, but
yeah, but the Republic has I think 60-something fire chance.
Yeah. But I mean, to be honest, when I play the Republic, I think I very rarely reach for the HE anyway.
Yeah, it's a powerful tool, right? It's it like burns everything.
Anyway, so I think we've covered all the dev blog stuff. And is there anything else on the portal?
You mean the portal stuff?
Oh, the portal stuff. Yeah, the other way around. I don't think there's that much on the dev blog apart from the submarines, is there? The closed test return thing.
Oh, what we haven't mentioned yet is there is the super early access of the Italian Tier 4 destroyer over Twitch Prime.
Yeah, that's the thing they've been doing for a while now as well, isn't it?
I like that they call it super early access. Like we are in the part of the game where we have early access for stuff and you have super early access for stuff.
Yeah. I mean, if you have Twitch Prime linked to your Wargaming account, then yay. But it's a Tier 4 destroyer,
Yeah.
So it's not. I don't think it's going to be anything amazing.
I mean, you can potentially have some fun if it. I've gotten it from like Twitch Prime, but I haven't actually played it yet. So.
I think the characteristics of lower mid tiers sometimes aren't that similar to the characteristics of the high tiers anyway. So.
Oh, you do have barely any gun range, so it definitely has got that going.
Yeah.
So, I guess we can move to the dev blogs, and what everyone has been waiting for, we can talk about submarines again.
Oh, there is the Warships Regatta thing that's on the portal.
Oh.
I think that's another way you can get the Forest Sherman. Potentially. I think it's mostly focused around community tokens, though.
Oh, I think I missed that. So how is that goes?
It's basically one of these things you have to access through the portal and then hit some XP goals in order to get a possible number of community tokens. Which they've been a bit low key about a lot of the community token stuff. Like there's some nice camos and which is, not that many people read compared to looking at stuff in game. So it always feels a bit strange when they do like this. Doing it portal only feels like they're trying to deliberately limit the number of people that will notice and take part. But hey, if you're listening to this on whatever podcast service or on YouTube, then now you know it's a thing and you can go and sign up. The main difference is that they have it split into amateur league and professional league, and the amateur league you start earning the tokens at much smaller increments of XP. It seems like.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it. So basically, you can go amateur league or professional league, and you can easier collect tokens in the amateur league. But with the professional, you enter the race for the podium, and then you can like win a Forest Sherman if you like have this very good experience.
Yeah,
game.
although there's only going to be 10 players for these, that are going to get these podium prizes. So there'll be 3 that can win a Forest Sherman outright, and then the other 7 will get 3 of the firepower premium containers each. So yeah, it is a possible avenue to get a Forest Sherman, but 3 out of however many thousands will take part. Yeah. But
Probably
as a way to
not
just
gonna
get some community tokens, I suppose it's nice as a thing. If you don't care about the Forest Sherman too much. I mean, certainly there are some of the community designed camos on that armory tab that I don't have that I would quite like.
Oh yeah, true.
Or you could spend it on a super container instead if you absolutely had to roll your chances that way and end up with 25 flags or something.
Probably.
Yeah, there are some good ones there though. I don't have the Normandy camo, for example, or the.
Then again, do you play your Normandy ever?
No, but it looks sufficiently like it's the same color scheme that's basically used on the west coast of Scotland ferries. So I kind of have to have it just for that reason. It really looks like the Calmac livery on the Calmac West Coast ferries. So I just have to have it for that reason. There was actually a video today, and this is a completely topical reference, but we're having Storm Eunice here in the UK at the moment, which isn't actually affecting where we are. But there's a video I saw of one of the Calmac ferries making a rather bumpy entrance into Ardrossan Harbour on the west coast, and it did not look like a fun ride.
I mean, with you mentioning fun, this is a nice transition to submarines, I guess.
Yeah.
So, people were hopeful that with the wording that maybe Wargaming has something good in store for submarines. Of course not, they're just coming back. Although, not all of the changes are bad. So
there are some interesting thoughts in there. I'm still against submarines overall, but there are some changes they've made that are kind of interesting, and probably the most interesting one from the point of view of playing against submarines is this oil leak mechanic that they're talking about that now gives you a way of being able to see where a damaged submarine is. I mean, they have to be damaged in order to be leaking oil, and the only way they can stop that leak is to use one of their limited number of DCP consumables. So they do, a sub player has got a way of stopping it, but it means that there's now that tactical consideration of, do I, like, as a player in a battleship or whatever, you've got to make that consideration of, do I use my DCP to get rid of a ping? Well, now a submarine player has to make that same kind of call of, do I use a DCP when I'm not otherwise taking damage to get rid of the oil leak that's potentially giving my position away? So it's evening things out a bit in that regard, I think, and also giving ships potentially a better chance of spotting where a submarine is.
Yeah, you can also now see the ping.
Yes, which is one of the other big changes. So I mean, you already knew when you were getting pinged, but I think you'll now have a better idea of where it's coming from.
You can actually see traveling through the water, right? You
I
can see exactly where it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I mean,
Which allows you to better guess where it is and maybe drop some depth charges in your planes.
So it increases the risk for sub players in terms of. It seems like, because one of the things when testing subs you would see sometimes when I was in a sub is people would kind of have a very vague idea of where which side of the ship the ping had come from, but they obviously you can't see the exact path, so you would get people trying to blind drop their airstrikes on you, and that actually will be maybe a more effective tactic now, something that you'll have to be more wary of.
Yeah, and I think every ship only has one depth charge strike, but they say it reloads faster.
Yeah, and it's now, if it does, if you do get into the radius, there's 100% flooding chance. But subs can only have one active flood at a time. So again, it's putting some pressure on subs damage control party, and you're going to have to think about, do I save the limited number of charges for floods, or do I get rid of this oil slick? Of course, the question is, is this then going to make playing submarines completely miserable and no one will want to play them, kind of thing? But it's a nice change from the point of view of surface ships.
Yeah, they basically addressed some of the problematic spotting and counterplay issues with submarines, right? So you now have an easier time finding out where they are, in a sense, because, it's not like if they don't ping and if they just surface in front of you and torpedo you, you still won't have any idea they're here until they shove torps in your face.
Yeah. Been homing acoustic torps, which have lower damage but higher chance to hit versus conventional torps. So if you get, it might be there's now more incentive to try and make more conventional torp drops, because they're not going to give your position away as a ping would. But they have also made some changes to how the sonar pings work.
Oh yeah,
which is interesting.
Also, submarines only have 3 depths now, so they have further simplified it.
I feel like that's a thing we've had before in testing at various points with some of the various. I feel certain at some point we've had this where it's only been 3 fixed depths, or maybe it's been 4 fixed depths, but we've definitely had fixed depths. A limited number of fixed depths as a thing previously. So
yeah, that was in the last. They have long ago gone from the freely things you had, but you had I don't know 3, 4, 5, whatever. You had a more fixed depths before now. Now they've just limited to 3.
One less, because you had like periscope depth and then operating depth and then maximum depth. It was something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I wonder if obviously you can't dive deeper than there is. I wonder if because you have nothing below periscope depth other than max, I wonder if that will force you into periscope at certain. Well, it must force you into periscope at certain places because there's just a ground below you.
You might end up just wiggling up and down on, commanding your submarine to go up and down, so you're sort of going in between. But it depends how exactly it works. If you tell it to go down, will it just go all the way down and ignore commands to go back up again, kind of thing? Which I don't know that would work particularly well, but that's the only way I could see to stop somebody wiggling up and down between periscope and maximum.
I can tell you that as a submarine you can most certainly get stuck on the ground, like any proper ship. So if you go down too much and you slam into the ground, it's possible that it just keeps you there.
Maybe it's fine. Then we'll have the map team be fixated on fixing that problem for the next 2 years, and the Falklands map will just have to wait. It's fine. Doing the underwater stuff is clearly more important.
Definitely. So yeah, we already covered they have now the two type. Well, they already had the two types of troops, but now the ping doesn't benefit the second more.
Yeah, there's some interesting.
And there is also with the homing, I think they've sort of talked about this earlier in the dev blog, that your troops homing on the last ping you have, and if you switch pings, it doesn't switch where the troops don't change.
It's so a torpedo will home on the last pinged ship and remember its target. Further pings made after the torpedo is launched will not influence it. So you could. I don't think you've been able to do this up until now. You can ping a target, send a torpedo, an acoustic torpedo off towards it, and then you could ping a target, a different target, and send off a torpedo towards that, and they will go towards their separate targets. And further to that, each torpedo will respond to the last successful ping before its launch, or provided there were no other active pings before launch, with the first successful ping after its launch. And also, the torpedo will be able to improve its guidance parameters if the first ping hits a target before the torpedo launch and the second after the launch. So the way that you ping, you're not trying to get the double ping and then launch for the optimal homing. I think there was something about... Yeah, here we go. So if somebody negates the ping with damage control party when there's already a torpedo homing on it, it'll just go dumb, as it were. It will continue without guidance, ignore any sonar pings on other ships. But once the DCP wears off, and if you ping that same target again, that particular torpedo will remember its target and go back to it. So it seems like the ability to target individual ships is kind of a lot more specific now. But that scenario feels a bit edge case. Like you would have to be firing at close to max range for somebody's DCP to have cooled down and then be able to ping that same target again to get that individual torpedo to reacquire it.
I mean, it depends. You're not going to do that on a battleship because damage con lasts long, but on a destroyer or so, on a cruiser that have a very short lasting damage con. Like, I feel like that it's so ridiculous because Wargaming has many times said that they feel like damage control is the right way to counter sonar pings, and that makes a lot of sense. And now they go like, oh, by the way, it's possible that you can't even counter like one torpedo with that because they just ping you again and everything you've done is pointless.
Yeah, but I think that coupled with the changes to the visibility of pings, I mean, if you're sat in the middle of, like, you've got an array of ships in front of you and you're kind of pinging individual ships and firing off individual torpedoes, that potentially is going to make it a lot easier for them to triangulate your position, essentially, provided they're even just communicating with map pings. You've got several people pinging the same map, same bit of the map, and dropping their strikes at once. That could be very nasty for you in a submarine, potentially.
Well, we'll have to see how it turns out, I guess.
Yeah. Oil slicks we've already covered, which is just a nice little actual nod to, historical submarine hunting, because that was a thing that, like, if you managed to damage a sub and it was trailing oil, that was a pretty good way to then, home in on its position and finish it off potentially.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, dive capacity has been changed as well, so the meter depletes at a lower rate than previously, but and although it recharges at a faster rate on the surface, the maximum charge has been lowered by around a quarter, which is fairly hefty. Good. Yeah, I mean, it means you'll have to surface more often potentially, but you won't have to be on the surface for as long to recharge to whatever amount that you need.
So I've kind of skipped over the graphics before, right? We also have like a ship graphic there where you can see like the detection and detectability. And you can also see like they changed hydrophone a little bit. They've also didn't they like remove the
Oh yeah,
count of hydrophones?
is they've made damage control passes limited consumable, but made the subs hydrophone an unlimited consumable essentially.
And hydro, I think hydroacoustic search can now actually see submarines that dive, although only in 2 kilometers at max depth.
Yeah, so having hydro will be, and again, I feel like that's a thing they've done in previous iterations where hydro has been able to pick up subs. And the main difference here seems to be the limit on the radius in which you can pick up a sub with hydro. Oh, it does say only though when a sub's at maximum depth, so maybe you can detect it from further away if it's at periscope.
Oh yeah, periscope you get
Or
full hydro
surface.
range and surface.
Yeah.
Which is good. Like
depth. Oh, but yeah, the being able to detect with hydro at max depth, I guess, is the change there. It's just worded slightly. Yeah. Okay.
It used to be that they were undetectable at max depth, and now you can find them with hydro.
Yeah.
If they would be within 2 kilometers.
Radar can only detect surface submarines. I feel like that was the case already.
Yeah. They've changed that a few patches back, I guess.
Once it came into more widespread use, was absolutely used as a submarine detection tool. Like, basically being able to detect the snorkel, and then you ended up with this arms race of, or the periscope, and then Germany was trying to come up with anti-radar coatings and all this kind of thing. So, yeah, that was a thing.
But the thing, of course, is you are, when you're talking about spotting, if you're on periscope depth on average, you'll basically be 2 kilometers, so the assured detection range, right? You will be almost invisible as a submarine on periscope depth, while you still remain, I think, full vision.
Maybe. I can't remember.
I'm just looking, they haven't made the best graphic. There is detecting ships by submarine. Detectability of enemy ships. So I assume this is the same thing, right? You are surfaced. Okay, so you spot them with the air detection range when you are on periscope depth, but they only can see you at 2 kilometers, right? So air detect for like even cruisers is often like, for example, it could see a Des Moines at like 6 kilometers, but it can only see you at 2 kilometers. So it's at least you can be hydroed at this range. But it makes them still, if they are close, very dangerous spotters because you can't really see them because they're so incredibly sneaky, and they'll see you at air range, which is a lot usually, unless you're a destroyer.
Yeah, I mean, it's still fundamentally, all of these changes don't, for me, really address that core issue of what is the role of submarines other than to be a kind of extra sneaky destroyer kind of thing, but without the spotting ability. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like some of these changes are interesting, but I don't know if it really fundamentally changes my view of subs. I mean, they are trying to take steps to improve the interaction between surface ships and subs. But yeah, I'm still not sold. I don't know about you, but I still would much rather see subs just kind of go away from randoms and at best maybe be in as something that's in operations or its own mode.
Yeah, I agree. Like, the thing is, they the way they are seeming to design them is that if you want to use the homing torpedoes, you are easier to counter in a sense because they see the ping coming and they might be able to do something against you. But the core issue of a super seeking ship just surfacing 3 kilometers in front of you and unloading its torps is the same. Now, they say that the regular torps do about the damage of a destroyer. Depends on which destroyer, because that's honestly a very far spread.
Yeah, if we're talking Swedish destroyers, then
yeah, like if it depends. Like, can they still one shot you? Like, can you surface in front of a Kurfürst and just one shot it if you unload all of its guns, all of its torps? Because there is no counter to that still. You can't see it coming in if it dives, even if it's at the bottom. It actually still gets spotty, although only 8 to 10 kilometers on average. But it still can get spotting on the minimap. That's also changed because you used to be absolutely blind down there. So to make it easier to maneuver and plan your strikes. So yeah, we'll see. I don't suspect that they'll
have to actually get our hands on them and play with them a bit and against them and see if it's any more or less annoying than it was before.
I mean, I presume it's gonna be same old, right? It might even drive the divide between good and bad players even further, because now if the submarine just is a bad player, with the pings visible and the oil leaks, they might be easier to counter if they don't know what they're doing. And the good ones will still surface in front of you and just one-shot you. But hey, I mean, we will see what happens with this test and after this test.
Yeah.
So have they changed anything else? Ship-mounted depth charges are used at close range. No shit.
Well,
the
that's
amount of wisdom.
I saw one. That somehow magically changed.
While the range of the airstrike depends on ship type and tier, I'm assuming they're still screwing over cruisers and make mostly battleships the sub-hunters.
Yeah.
Airstrike loads quite fast. This is more drop area. I'm wondering if they've reduced the drop area now. It's hard to say because I think that it's hard to judge, I think, from a screenshot how big that area is.
Yeah, without exact numbers, it's kind of hard to eyeball it.
I mean, it sounds like they make it more consistent inside the strike area, but a smaller strike area. And obviously the strike area is delayed, so we will have to see how easy it is for submarines to dodge that and get out of it.
If they just give, like, people can have their submarines, just let me have anti-rock launchers on all my ships, and I'll be happy.
I mean, they said that the Super Minotaur will have advanced anti-submarine warfare. They've never said how that looks like.
I mean, when they say that, I bet it's just like a hedgehog launcher or something, but yeah.
So yeah, nobody's looking forward to submarines, but they'll be coming back in a month. It's a short story. And from what we've seen here, it's gonna be a clusterfuck like every other submarine test.
Probably. I don't know if we have much reason to be confident it will be anything otherwise, but I guess we'll see.
Well, I mean, that brings us to current known issues. Bot behavior. Bot A got a major overhaul, okay. Internal testing showed that change wouldn't affect the bot behavior in Corp operations and other temporary battle types as planned. However, feedback showed that was not the case.
ramming people more frequently, which to my eyes, that means obviously they're becoming more self-aware. Their lust for vengeance against puny humans is becoming more, they're learning clearly.
It's such an interesting word at the article or something. Like, basically they made changes to the AI. They thought it wouldn't affect the AI, making changes to the AI, and they internally tested it and confirmed that their changes to the AI didn't change the AI, and then people played it, and the changes to the AI actually changed the AI. Now they are shocked, and it will take them multiple patches, probably. They say patched in one of the closest updates, meaning not even a month from now, guaranteed, but possibly in a few months from now. Also, they said this was on public test, so this was basically before they pushed it live. They already knew they had screwed up. But the brief public test showed them something that internal testing couldn't confirm. So how much internal testing was there, I ask? Because that seems something that you should be able to find.
If we had some numbers to go with it, or even a rough idea, but I don't know, like how much more often it's occurring. But yeah, I don't know. In the meantime, I just guess be wary of bots trying to ram you. There's also an acknowledgement on this page that login times have been increasing, and that's certainly something I've personally noticed, that I can get up and go and get set a cup of tea brewing kind of thing and come back, and it still might be trying to log in.
Oh yeah.
And personally, I thought that was just because I use mods, and I think mods are known to potentially increase the kind of login time, but clearly it's not just that. Clearly there's something else going on.
Yeah, I'm not using mods. I've already noticed for several patches that the game login time is going to... It seems like it's finally getting so bad that I have to publicly acknowledge it and maybe do something about it.
Yeah.
But it has been terrible for many months.
It's interesting, though, because it's one of these things where it's not entirely clear from the outside looking in that what the issue is going to be. Like, is it with the login process itself? Is it something on their end with the login servers? Or is it something client side to do with how it's handling credentials? Or is it to do with how the files are packed? Or like I don't really know. Like, there's probably multiple things that could be causing this. So it's nice to see it being acknowledged, but we'll see how long it takes them to actually fix it.
Yeah, like the thing is, I mean, I'm not a programmer, but it seems like a game login is sort of an easy part. You send your credentials, they confirm it, they check if they are real, and then they send yes back. It shouldn't take a long time with modern internet.
So it might be to do with game architecture then, or it might be something on their end in terms of, like, who knows, but at least we're acknowledging it now, I suppose, rather than just kind of ignoring it.
Yeah, Captain Honor says he hasn't been able to log in at all. Yeah, I'm not sure how widespread it is, but I've heard from people that got stuck for half an hour or longer into
okay. I've not had anything that bad, but yeah, that would be... and fire up the game and then just leave it, fire up a different game while you're waiting for World of Tanks to log in. Yeah, or World of Warships, rather.
And then there have also been crashes that is not in this post, interestingly, but there was something about, where was it, crashes?
Yeah, there's not a lot of information there. Client crashes. So the release of update 11.1, the frequency of game client crashing has increased. I haven't personally had this happen, so I can't speak to this, but yeah.
Did they have an update that one older mod seems to be also causing that? But it might not be the only thing.
It's a potential issue, so yeah.
But once again, it's like they have multiple issues that would make a company go, wait a moment, should we actually push this live? While Wargaming is like, yeah.
It says so on the calendar, so therefore we must do it.
Yeah, it's like, on the spreadsheet, how many people will be affected? Yeah, that's we don't care about those guys. Armory. Users running Windows 7 are experiencing problems with displaying various elements and content in the Armory. No, I can tell you users running Windows 10 might also not be able to open the Armory and haven't been able to do for 3 years. And it usually takes about 2 or 3 tries for me to open the Armory, and then when it starts opening, it only displays like a weird script, and then you have to try again, and then it finally opens. And sometimes also like the dockyard and things like this. So
that definitely sounds like some kind of server communication issue in that case. Yeah,
but see, that's the point. I can open a browser like Chrome or so and log into the Armory there without issue. I just can't do it in game.
So
easily,
something
right?
with the client trying to do it. That's
so
weird.
Or the internal browser has some problems. And the thing is, I've had the same issues with like my old PC. I mean, that's been over 3 years now, right? That I've changed my PC. But my old PC was like Intel and my new PC is AMD. So it's not like it's platform specific in that regard. It's just, I don't know why, but interesting programming.
Yeah. Interesting. That's a word for it.
Yes, because yeah. That with the whole tick issue, because I have friends that are like programmers, and when they heard about this whole tick issue, they were so baffled because it's like there is no rational reason why the game would handle things like that. That like if you keep the mouse button pressed, you have twice the delay than if you just hammer the mouse button.
I mean, to be honest, the way this game probably, I don't know how kind of universally true this is, but there was a post years and years ago that did a deep dive into, I think it was specifically how the UI elements on World of Tanks worked, and it was just such a complete hodgepodge. Like, it was kind of things built on top of other things that were kind of rickety to begin with, and I wonder how much of that is true of World of Warships, where you have this kind of house of cards, almost, like things built on top of other things, and the foundation's maybe not that stable, but it's fine, we'll just pile some more stuff on. And maybe it falls into that kind of category of programming, where this was some decision that was made in the past that's turned out to be not maybe a great decision, but they're kind of stuck with it now, and if they try and change that, it's going to break too many other things. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, sure, but it seems such an odd choice that they change the frequency in which they communicate just if you hold down a button. Like, I mean, obviously, a lot of the code was never meant for a game like World of Warships, and it's an old game, and there probably isn't much documentation left. And they are just, as it's usually like with programming, right? They're just, nobody knows what's going on, and everybody just adds onto the code with bad comments, and they hope that it somehow still works. But that's like somebody has to have made a decision that if somebody holds down a button, the game is less reactive than if you like spam it.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't.
See, Sam agrees even.
Yeah, he's awoken from his slumber. Hello, Sam. So clearly he is. Yeah, he thinks it doesn't make sense either. Although he has been outed as a filthy World of Tanks player. Don't know if you saw that clip on my channel.
Yes, I saw that.
So yeah, tried to deny it, of course, didn't you, Sam? But
although I admit
evidence.
I wasn't able to identify the tank because my tank knowledge is unfortunately.
It was a USB stick I got. I think it was either a Tank Fest or something like that. But it's basically a little rubbery KB1 with the USB, like you pull it apart, and it bounces quite nicely when he plays with it. So he likes playing with it a lot. Except when I try and video him playing with it, and then he refuses to cooperate, of course. But, that was amusing in its own right, I suppose.
True. So yeah,
Anyway,
then
so
there's...
I think we're done with the devblog stuff.
Yeah, there was one more about the clans, but I think we already talked about this.
Yeah, we talked about the clan stuff right at the start, didn't we?
There are just some more maps now displayed so you can see where the spawns are and what maps will be like.
Pretty much it's just the maps, actually, this article. But also the...
Yeah, and obviously stating again that aircraft carriers and submarines will not be.
I'm sure, I mean, usually the just in the Asia region particularly, somebody somewhere gets screwed by the way they do the prime time, because it covers quite a lot of time zones, but yeah. So we do have some other bits of news. I think mostly from Reddit, the last couple of things. So we touched on Sub-Octavian saying he was going to stand down. So he did a little statement on Reddit to that effect, possibly on the official forums as well. I'm not sure. So we know he's moving on to some other wargaming project, but we have no hint as to what. So he might be being put in charge of something. I mean, he was kind of effectively in charge day to day of World of Warships. Not in charge of the studio, but he was kind of the main Warships manager, as it were. So one can assume that he's going to a similar position elsewhere, because wargaming, they have gone around buying up other studios and things, and sometimes it's panned out, and sometimes it's just kind of then nothing's happened as a result of it. But
they've also had a lot of failures. Like they tried the card game, I think.
They have had I think this is something they've been trying for years and years. They've been trying to branch out in different directions, and it's been things like that cards game. We've had them try their hands at publishing things. That they've bought the rights to IPs. We had the remake of the Master of Orion game, which was okay, but it clearly didn't do well enough to warrant any kind of follow-up. I think they've published a couple of other minor games.
There was the Total War thing that they've already shut down again because
they took over as, I think, the publisher of that, and that got shut down. They had a brief foray into trying to add other games to the Wargaming Center client. Hello, Sam. And actually, that very recently got removed. That was, I think, Steel Division 2, something like that. It was one of those Eugen Systems. Eugen, I should know how to pronounce that better. For goodness' sake, we have the Prince Eugen game. The Eugen Systems RTS titles, which clearly they were betting would be a decent fit for their audience, but that's actually not available anymore. The first I knew of it was seeing a thing of getting an email saying, "Oh, it's been removed. Here's instructions on how to move it to Steam," kind of thing.
There was a shooter, right? Like I remember on the last, before this whole pandemic started, on the last time when there was still a Gamescom. They had a playable shooter at the Gamescom, one of their new projects. I've never heard anything since.
The one that does stick in mind is they bought the studio of I can't remember what it was called now. Was it Gas Powered Games or something like that? Chris Taylor. It was Gas Powered Games. They became Wargaming Seattle, and then was subsequently that closed in 2018. So that was another thing. So they have this continual history of trying to like, if you look at lists of publishers by revenue for kind of these online free-to-play games, Wargaming is actually a relatively big player in that market. just on the basis of World of Tanks and World of Warships, and to a much lesser extent World of Warplanes. But they've really failed to, despite many attempts and goodness knows how much money spent, they really have failed to break out into any other avenues, either as a publisher or developer of other games. So yeah, it kind of almost seems like it's one of those instances where they've gotten successful on this really one thing, it's kind of this World of Tanks or this World of formula, and then have really not been able to take that and use that money to be successful and grow in other areas, which other companies obviously have done. Like Valve, for instance, wasn't always the owner of Steam. Way back when they just made games, and then
I mean, they started with Steam as a platform for their games, right?
Yeah,
and it was when Steam came out, it was one of the worst pieces of software to ever exist. And now it's basically the number one probably game distributor. Yeah,
it's the 900-pound gorilla in the room, or whatever that phrase is. So yeah. So yeah, they've had like Master of Orion. Tom McKeever was at best a modest success. But from my point of view, the game was okay, and I think it's initially okay sales wise, but maybe they didn't really make any money on it. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't any kind of success from their point of view. So yeah, they don't seem to have been able to pick projects and be that successful with them. Like outside of World of Tanks, their main success has World of Warships, pretty much. It's interesting to compare that to Gaijin, who operate on a much smaller scale, and yet they've been a bit more successful spinning stuff off from their more modest success with War Thunder.
It almost feels like that a lot of wargaming success is accidental. I wonder at times, because often sometimes people like to point wargaming as this sort of genius evil company in a way that knows exactly what it's doing, and it's just doing it to make most money. But when I see them flail around with things like submarines and the balancing and so on, sure, a lot of it is just unwilling to do stuff or fix their problems because they don't see this that beneficial. But they seem to generally have, when you see how they flail around with submarines, they generally seem to have no idea how the game works and they generally have no plan how to implement them. To this day, they don't know what a submarine should be doing. And I don't think they've ever sat down and asked themselves the question. It's in so many ways and in the balancing article that they wrote a while back, a lot of it was very questionable what they wrote anyway, but in the end they said that they operate on a rock, paper, scissors system, which doesn't really hasn't been a thing for a long time because the classes are so diverse in a sense. So if that's actually the game philosophy, then any success they have right now is pure accidental, because they seem to have absolutely no understanding of how their game works.
Yeah, so in all of that context, I guess we'll learn sooner or later what Sub-Octavian has gone off to do, but whether it's a success or not, we shall see. The other thing, and possibly the last thing, unless there's something else, but there was a Reddit thread where someone had noticed that there's been a section added to the EULA and it turns out all wargaming titles, an NFT end user license agreement. And then it emerged, there was this, obviously a lot of comments of, oh my god, they're going to add NFTs to World of Warships. And then it emerged, actually, they've already done that, but with World of Warplanes. They had an event back in, I think, October or November. And, oh, Sam, that's the mouse. Thank you. Rolling around, and now I don't have control of my computer. Thank you. That they'd added it as event rewards. And it was weird because it doesn't seem to have been any reason why they needed to be NFTs other than they were doing, to me, it feels like anyway, a test balloon to see if there was any market for it. Because I'd almost been having feelings of not dread exactly, but wondering if I was going to wake up someday and find out that Wargaming had jumped on that train, as have other publisher companies tried to. But that every time it's happened, there's always been such a kickback against it that to the extent that some games have, like what was it, Team 17, kind of almost immediately backed down. I think Ubisoft keeps trying to float the idea, and we had that executive come out and say, no, you just don't understand the benefits, without actually saying what these supposed benefits were. Everyone pouring scorn on them online. And me thinking, well, maybe Wargaming's been sensible enough that they've listened to this feedback, because by and large it seems like gamers do not want NFTs. Like, the intersection between the market for NFTs, which seems to be largely driven by, well, there's been a whole lot of information going around about NFTs, and I think people are now better informed about NFTs than ever before, and what exactly they are and what they are not. But there still seems to be this hype in certain sectors about NFTs, and this push, these dollar signs lighting up in game executives' eyes of, well, somehow we can work this in and make even more money off people, alongside all of the existing microtransactions and all the other ways that we try and squeeze money out. But people that actually play games for fun, generally speaking, don't want them, and recognize that they're good things. They've already, I think, to some extent, had this experience with even just like microtransactions and loot boxes in various forms. And why would they not be wary of this next big thing? But the crowd that do think that NFTs are great and wonderful and fantastic way to make money, they're not the people that are playing games to play games. There are now games out there where they are this so-called play to earn, and you can get NFTs of things. And the crowds of people they seem to attract are not the same crowds of people necessarily that would be kind of mainline gamers. So yeah, but it turns out they had offered NFTs as a prize in this event, and there was absolutely no reason given for it that I could tell. And considering the nature of any of the world of titles, you could easily just have a unique thing tied to somebody's account with absolutely no need for the blockchain to get involved.
Yeah,
it's just a completely unnecessary step. Like, there's no benefit to somebody, a World of Warplanes player, going, yeah, I have this NFT. It doesn't do anything. It isn't worth anything to you other than, hey, look, I have this worthless thing.
Yeah, as Fu has pointed out, most people who play games already know how to screenshot things. So
exactly. And aside from the environmental concerns, I mean, it was in the news not that long ago that the estimated use, I can't even remember the exact numbers, but it was basically the electricity use of a small country being used just on NFTs, never mind the crypto market generally. So it's a hugely wasteful thing. It's utterly unnecessary for games, and I really hope Wargaming decide not to take it further. But the one official response we have from the new community guy on the Reddit side, Cyberfight, who pointed out first off that the reason why there's this EULA section now is because of the World of Warplanes event. That there's now this EULA section across all the Wargaming titles. But he then follows up by saying, we currently have no plans to bring NFT to order Warships, and should this change, we will inform you about our plans. That's not a no. That's not a, we're not going to do this. That's a kind of, maybe. We'll see. We'll see how we feel about it. even if they had, and you were saying this before we started, even if they had outright come out and said, no, we're not going to do this in World of Warships, it still wouldn't necessarily be the most believable statement ever. But as it is, it kind of leaves me with a slightly sinking feeling that they might try and do it anyway.
So also what we should have probably started with, so I'm not sure if everybody knows what an NFT is. An NFT is, it basically means that you sort of own the link to something like a picture or so.
You're buying a spot in a database, essentially.
Yes.
And adjacent to that spot in the database, there can be a bit of information. It might be a URL to a picture. There's no guarantee that URL won't change in the future, of course, or the picture might disappear from that URL, but, you've bought the thing associated with that URL, and, good luck if that disappears. You can't really do anything about it. But it can have other things in there as well. It's just, I think pictures have been the headline thing because a lot of the NFT project pictures are this kind of really weird-looking, almost semi-machine generated art that doesn't have any actual artistic value. But then there's also been a lot of stories about just because
people getting ripped off and people selling art that they don't own.
Yeah, there's been a huge amount of entire YouTube channels, and the thing is, there are kind of multiple marketplaces. There are multiple places where you can mint an NFT. So it's nothing to stop somebody, like, let's take that World of Warplanes example where you've got that bit of specific bit of I think it was just like an art thing for the World of Warplanes NFT. That you could take that, and presuming Wargaming has only put it on one exchange or whatever they're called, you could potentially take that URL to a different, mint it on a different site and sell that yourself. And there's nothing really stopping people doing that because there's just very little regulation. The only examples of people getting stolen anything returned through one of these sites is essentially, if they have a big enough platform that they can bring the pressure to bear on these sites and say, these people have stolen my stuff and can you delist it, please? It doesn't disappear from the blockchain. It's now there forever. It's just kind of unlisted kind of thing. So the whole thing is just a complete mess.
Yeah. So basically, if you buy like an NFT picture, you don't even have the rights to the picture. You sort of own a spot in a database that says that you own that link to like that where this picture is posted or something like that. But you don't own the picture, even though you paid I don't know how much money. But the artist owns the picture. And as has been pointed out, oftentimes it's a scam because people just take pictures from somebody else and mint them as an NFT and then sell them. So NFTs basically serve three purposes. They are good to launder money, to dodge taxes, and to scam people.
Yeah, there's been it's weird because it's this hugely insular market of people just kind of, I think, trading amongst themselves, and I think the sheer amount of hype around NFTs and companies looking to get in on NFTs and try and popularize NFTs is to try and somehow get this market to be bigger and actually draw in people from outside this relatively small circle. But as you say, there is so much kind of just criminality rife with laundering and all kinds of other shady business going on with NFTs as well. So the whole thing just needs to die, basically. There might be some use case for the technology out there somewhere, but the current form of NFTs is absolutely not it. And, it's also, I think, shed a lot of light on crypto and blockchain generally and how shady and unregulated a lot of that is as well. like entire new coins that appear and then just kind of rake in like $1 million or whatever with the initial offering, and then just disappear. They just get delisted and vanish into the ether, and essentially that's money somebody's just walked off with. So, yeah. So all we're saying is, we're selling an NFT of this podcast, and we expect to make millions of dollars, and we'll probably launch our own, own
a cat NFT shop.
Well, yeah, it's fine. We're going all in on this, you guys.
Definitely.
Buy Sam Coin today. This podcast has drifted to financial advice. Well, it's interesting. My name was in the water because it's this intersection between this kind of weird, really unregulated space within the kind of whole crypto and technology area that has ended up intersecting with gaming in a way that gamers have consistently rejected, but big companies keep trying to push anyway because they think it's going to make them more money. The one project I am aware of that was recently pushed out and has been deeply unsuccessful was Konami, who once upon a time respected game publisher, and then just I think I don't know how many people are going to be aware of the recent-ish history of Konami in the last couple of years, but they, to put it bluntly, completely disappeared up their own arse and decided all the money that they wanted to make was, it was way more profitable to basically make money out of pachinko and gambling machines in Japan than to actually publish games. So they've kind of boulderized all their IPs that they own, like Castlevania and all this kind of thing, into weird gambling machines. But they've then tried to capitalize on all their IP once again with their NFTs, and they sold this Konami collection, which was, I think, just basically bits of art from various old games. And from my understanding, it sold really poorly because the actual people that might be nostalgic for those games are not the same people that are dead into NFTs. So,
yeah, and I mean, they can't just screenshot. That's the thing, right? You own the spot in a database that says you own the link and so on. You can't just go to the site and screenshot it and you have them. Oh. Most gamers are smart enough to press the print screen button.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, the inherent value. I mean, there are obviously things of NFTs, changing hands for the equivalent of ridiculous amounts of money, but it's all kind of people speculating on it at the moment. And the inherent value of any given NFT, I might as well write, scribble something like a doodle on a bit of paper, and that bit of paper is unique. There's no other bit of paper like it, with this exact scribble, or this exact doodle on it. But it doesn't necessarily mean it has any inherent value beyond its uniqueness, and that's kind of like. It's just such a fundamentally shallow thing that it just seems to have been hyped out of any kind of anything. I don't know. The whole thing is just weird. I had my my dad asking about it like a couple of months ago, and there was something in the news about it, and it was like, I don't understand this NFT thing at all. And I was just like, yeah, it's not just you, it's everybody. The whole thing is weird. It makes no sense. It's ridiculous and a waste of time.
Yeah, it's like if you try to sell like a star in the sky, and then you take a piece of paper and you write down, now you own that star. There is no practical
star registry or buying a piece of land on the moon or Mars, or it has the exact same force as that, basically.
Yeah, everybody can look at that star and can take pictures of it, and you only have a piece of paper that tells you own that star. That's probably not legally enforceable anyway. And if it was, you wouldn't have any purpose for it in the first place. And
the analogy even holds up to the point where there were different websites where you could buy stars. So, unless you were going on to all of the websites where you could buy stars and buying the exact same star, you could have potentially multiple people owning the same star thing, and the exact same thing's happening with NFTs. The theft and all that's going on. So,
by the way, we also now sell stars if you're interested.
yeah, exactly.
Uh,
So it's all just ridiculous nonsense. So so wargaming in NFTs, just no wargaming. Just don't do it. Be sensible. Just don't.
Yeah,
it's fine. They'll probably forget the NFT idea and somehow move on to they're going to make the wargaming metaverse as their next thing.
It's
the nonsense that's going around.
It's okay. They'll find another tech ship to sell us for $100 or so.
I truly in my worst. I don't know if nightmare is the right word, but my most absolute cynical moment. I expect to wake up one day and find that you can buy the NFT for the Turpits. Okay. Does that mean I now own all Turpitses? No. Doesn't mean a damn thing, only that I've been willing to give wargaming money for nothing, essentially. Anyway, God, I really hope they don't. I really hope they don't.
But in your heart, you know they will.
We'll see. Even if they do it in some inoffensive or relatively inoffensive way, it's still going to be a stupid idea and a waste of everyone's time.
And energy.
Yeah. Oh, wow. You want to be able to put your ships into your will? Tom McKeever. Yeah. So I think that's about us. Unless there's been some last-minute dev blog. We were hoping to, for anyone wondering, we were hoping to have a guest this week, but it didn't pan out. But I think we've got someone lined up for next week. So, yeah. I also want to give a shout-out to anybody that's listening to this on some podcast service, because that seems to have actually been going pretty well. I do try and mention this every so often, that we now also do you can go and search on various podcast services. So I don't know if we're on Spotify, but I think we're on various other. I know we're on Apple Podcasts. So yeah, it's a bit cool. It was interesting, an interesting little journey, because it's like you don't necessarily have to upload all these different things. Like a lot of them kind of automatically propagate from other surfaces. So, but if you want to go and download and listen to previous ones, you can do that while you're out and about. So that's the thing. We'll be selling NFTs for podcast episodes as well, obviously.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And on that note, I guess we can say goodnight to you all and see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.